Hi, in this video I'm going to show you a few basic features of Tabular Editor. In my previous 300-second video I showed you how to connect Tabular Editor to Power BI. I'll also be showing both views, Tabular Editor on the left and Power BI on the right, so you can kind of see how they interact with one another. One of the first features I'd like to highlight within Tabular Editor is the ability to copy and duplicate measures. Just to kind of show you why this is nice and how it works in comparison to Power BI. Imagine this is our dashboard, and in this case we want to create a new measure where, for example, we're creating the sum of expenses, which is simply the sum of the value in expenses. And after that we also want to create the average of expenses, so we do the same thing for expenses value, right? So we've created those two different measures. Now, let's say that I want to do the same now also for my revenue data sets, where I also take the sum of the value and the average of the value in the revenue data sets. I can go ahead and continue to create new measures, but often in larger Power BI data sets, creating a new measure every single time, you'll get this little loading icon, everything will need to reload, and Power BI is becoming a lot better and faster at that, but the problem is that the model is constantly updating itself after the creation of every single new measure. In Tabular Editor, there's two ways that you can kind of speed up this process a little bit. So if I bring this back to the right-hand side, what you'll see now is that I have both of those measures. They also showed up here in Tabular Editor. And what you can actually do in Tabular Editor is you can actually select both of those and then duplicate them. So now I actually have those two same measures right here, which I can open up. And now I can quickly say, all right, instead of the expenses data sets, I want this to be the sum of revenue and the average of revenue. Now what you also see as I'm editing these values is that the model isn't updating it on the Power BI side, which allows you to quickly make several different adjustments without having that kind of reload of Power BI. And then now by clicking Control S, I've now saved those changes, and now all of a sudden you see them show up here on the right hand side where you now have average of revenue and sum of revenue. So that's the first thing, is it's a quick way to, for example, quickly duplicate and generate a bunch of new measures, which is we're not going to create any more now. The other thing that is really useful is that often you get these measures, and I've created all these measures now in my dates table. It's actually not something that I wanted to do, and often within Power BI you're like, all right, but I want to move them somewhere else. There's two things here. A, Tabular Editor simply allows you to move things in between tables, so you can select all of them and move them to a new table, for example. So now they're all out of my dates table and in my expenses table. However, you can also create something called calculation groups. So if you right click on tables and click create new and then say new calculation group, and you can call this measures. Normally you might want to say I want to call it measures, but that's a reserved word in Power BI, so you can do underscore measures. This is a specific group that can basically hold measures only. It also will have a different icon. So I've moved everything here, Control S, and then now on the right hand side, if I refresh now, it'll actually currently in the beginning still show up as a table, but if you then make invisible, you'll now see that it has a different icon because it's a calculation group, and it's basically a place that you can group all of your measures. Another cool feature is that you can actually start grouping these things. So this, for example, I might want to group these things together. I can actually create, by selecting the three of them and clicking display folder, I can actually say this is a folder for cost of last year, and this is maybe a folder for my expenses, and this here is a folder for revenue. And if I now save that, on the right hand side, you'll actually see that within this calculation group, I actually just created a bunch of folders to organize my measures. All of this stuff is actually stuff that you normally can't really do within Power BI itself, but you can do within Tabular Editor, which just makes your model way more organized. And definitely for larger projects, this can really be a huge life and time saver. One last thing that I really like about Tabular Editor is that you also have a little bit more control over the way that values are formatted. So when you're clicking on these different measures on the bottom part here, you can see a lot of different options that you can change about those measures, and one of them is the format string. Now obviously in Power BI itself you can also adjust the format string here, right? So I could say, hey, I want to make this a currency, the average expenses. If I go here now, you can actually see that the format string here was adopted or changed by Power BI. The thing is, you can actually directly edit this string, so if there's certain currencies or formats that you want to do that aren't in the default options, specifically often I find this very useful with dates, where you might want to format dates in a specific way that's currently not offered by Power BI. It's just something you can adjust in the format string here, which makes it a little bit easier to work with. So in general, this is a third thing that I find quite useful to use within Tabular Editor. These were the basic features that I wanted to show you in Tabular Editor. So again, to summarize, in Tabular Editor you can create calculation groups to create a specific area or several different areas where you want to store your measures. You can create folders and drag and drop measures across different folders or different tables to keep things more organized. You can quickly duplicate and edit measures without having to wait for the updates within Power BI itself, and you can quickly edit format strings. Tabular Editor is much more powerful than these things. It also has a whole scripting language, which I will create a separate video on, but knowing these basics already probably will speed up your Power BI development significantly, especially on larger, more complicated Power BI projects.